Hello everybody, it's Julie from the PMFRC. I'd like to welcome you to today's Fireside Chat. Usually we do these live, but unfortunately, due to some technical difficulties, we are unable to get the stream to go live today. So we are going to record this and then post it afterwards. But we definitely wanted to connect with you because we've got a really important topic this week. This week we're talking about Healthy Relationship Awareness Month, and I have two very special guests joining us, Chris Quigley, who is the Family Advocacy Coordinator at the PMFRC, and Dana Lawson. Dana is the Manager of Health Promotions for PSP here at Garrison, Petawawa. Welcome, ladies. Thank you very much for joining us. As we go through, these ladies are going to be talking about different resources that are available in the community. We're going to be talking about different pages that are available on CAF Connection. When we put this video online, we will add all of those links in the comment section. So if there's something that's of interest to you, or if we're referring to a page or a website or an email address or a telephone number, don't worry about having to come back and scroll through and finding it. If you look through the comment section, that's all going to be posted there. So all the information is in one place where you can find it. Chris, Healthy Relationship Awareness Campaign. It's happening during the month of October. Can you just talk about what the campaign is, why it's important, and how this came about?
Sure. So if we look back in history and from the military community, you will probably identify the Healthy Relation Campaign to be the one that would once was called a domestic violence campaign. And it normally runs for a week in October. This year, however, we are running it, or it is being ran for 2 weeks from the 19th to the 30th. And the whole intention behind the Healthy Relations Campaign is to allow folks to realize that, you know, having a relationship is not an easy thing. And so let's look towards the positive piece and try to keep the momentum going towards getting help to continue to have a positive relationship versus looking at the negativity of what would happen through a domestic violence situation. However, very serious, don't get me wrong, domestic violence is a serious situation, and we are supporting the fact that we don't want to see those pieces. So let's move it over to a positive piece and relate it to how can we make that relationship a little bit healthier so it doesn't go to a situation of violence for either party in the couple.
Sort of like my grandma used to talk about ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, sort of investing it at the front end so we don't end up with problems later on.
Exactly.
This is an initiative that is put together by the Family Violence Awareness Team, which is a committee at Garrison, Petawawa. You've been on that committee for a while. Who else is with you on that committee, and what is their role?
So the committee consists of military folks. So usually it's chaired by somebody from the Garrison Mental Health team, and myself from the PMFRC as a representative for family from the family side. We have a probation and parole person on board there. Family and Children's Services is on board. A padre from the Garrison is on board, as well as someone from PSP, Dana, sits on that committee with us, and someone from Burned at Mccann House, as well as Victim Services in Renfrew County, along with our Victim Services person through the MP DET here on the Garrison.
So you're looking at like a multidisciplinary team of people all the way across the spectrum in the community, so that in the community and as well as in the Garrison community as well.
Exactly. So that if ever there's a situation that's required to have support from any one of these departments, then we are there to be supportive. And how do folks know about our mental health our family violence team, Jules? That's a good question. We will certainly do briefings in units and meet with all the new COs coming in once they've settled into their new position here at the Garrison.
That's a good point. So the FVAT committee, as you guys call it, that's something that maybe the members would be more familiar with, maybe than the family members. But it's a committee that really talks about the whole spectrum.
Absolutely, and the Family Violence Advisory Team, FVAT, is pretty visible in the military community. We attend to things like the Garrison Day, where we have a booth there, Any of the unit members watching will be very familiar with our famous pen that we have with all the resources. And oftentimes, folks in the community will see members of the family violence team at the Cannex bagging groceries. And we do all of those sorts of things during campaigns like Healthy Relationships, so that we're able to promote the idea of positive and moving forward and finding resources to make things a little bit different in your relationship.
Dana, thank you for joining us. It's very nice to have you here with us. As Chris said, that you are a member of the committee, so this is a campaign that you're very familiar with. But in your other role, with your other hat on, you work with PSP Health Promotions. We were talking about the fact that healthy relationships, it's a lot of work, and in a lot of cases, it's a skill. It's skills that you can develop that help sort of contribute to that relationship. Health Promotions, you guys run a series of workshops throughout the year, and a number of them, I think, are important skills for relationships. What kind of courses does Health Promotions offer that people might be interested in if this is something they're focusing on right now?
Absolutely. Thanks, Julie. Glad to be here today and join in this fireside chat. You had mentioned, and Chris, that ounce of prevention, and that's really what health promotion is we focus in on the prevention aspect of it. So when I bring that role to the Family Violence Advisory Team and with the Healthy Relationship, I'm coming at it from that prevention perspective. So if we can, give folks the skills and the tools and the resources that they need, can we minimize that risk of, the relationship becoming unhealthy, becoming unsafe for people? So we do offer a number of workshops, as you have said. So the three that probably fit the best with this are what our programs that fall under what we call our social wellness cell. So thinking of that mental health, that social connectedness piece. So the first one is called Interpersonal Communication, or we call it Intercom for short. And it's really, the tagline with it is about resolving conflict in personal relationships. And so it really gives folks an opportunity to figure out, what type of a communicator are you? And then from there, what are some of your triggers, and how then can you learn to almost learn a script on being able to raise a concern and have that conversation with your partner. So it's a really good one that will give you the tools and the resources to do that. It's a 2-day workshop. The second one that I think fits in really well with this is our managing angry moments. Now, a lot of folks hear that term and think I have to be someone who's super angry, or have to, have had a situation where, I'm being told I need to take this. Because we're prevention focused, we want folks to think about taking our courses, while stuff is good, while things are going well, and you just, I'm looking for some personal development, I'm looking for some professional development. Chris had talked about, anger and, how that can evolve in that relationship. And that's really what anger management is about. It's to recognize that anger is an emotion that we're all entitled to feel. It's what we do with it that makes the difference. And so if we have the skills and the tools to use coping thoughts, or to use reframing, or to recognize that, I need a timeout before I escalate on that anger mountain too much, then we are going to protect ourselves, and we're going to protect our relationships. And because quite often that's the cost. When we are angry, when we are at our most angry, our thinking is at its lowest. Yeah. So if we think about, trying to have a conversation with someone when we're extremely angry, it's not going to end well. We're going to say something or do something that we, can't take back. And so it's important to think about, okay, before that, maybe I need to actually take that time out. If we've got some folks who've got kids, you've probably used that skill with your children. There's nothing wrong with using it as an adult as well, because we sometimes need to take a break and be able to regroup and then come back, as Chris said. Our third one that really fits well, and I always say it's a nice pairing. If you take anger management, you should take our stress take charge. Mm-hmm. So that is another one that really helps folks to understand, well, what are my stressors? What are those triggers? How do I deal with it? And a big piece around the stress take charge workshop is recognizing the control, no control situation. And that's a huge one, because when we realize, what things are out of our control, moving into the acceptance phase of it, and then things that we can control, actually putting the skills and the resources into what we would call the mastery phase of it. So those are the three that are really, I think, focused in on that soft side of it. Of course, you know, you have to be healthy as an individual. So I would say that, you know, even our nutrition courses and, you know, thinking about your physical activity, those are all things that are going to help your relationship be healthy. They might not be the specific skills that we know to have those conversations, but they're definitely part of what makes a person healthy. And then when we're healthy, we're able then to have those good conversations. We're getting the sleep we need, you know, and so on with that.
As you were talking, I was just thinking about the world that we're living in, and everyone has like this a little bit more stress going on, and there's just so many things in our life that we can't control. And when you sort of take that base and you raise that base up and you raise the base, it doesn't take that much more to sort of get to a point where you need help, or where you need to sort of stop and take a breath. So many of these courses, I mean, if you haven't thought about taking them before, now that we're in a different world, maybe it's time to sort of take a look back and say, maybe these are skills I should really take a look at. If you're interested in any of these courses that Dana just talked about, we are going to share in the comments the Facebook page for health promotion. So if you follow that Facebook page, you are going to see references to upcoming workshops, a lot of really good information that Dana and her team puts together about that sleeping piece, about that nutrition piece. So there's good advice to follow. We're also going to share the CAF Connection page for Dana's team, and they are going to have all the information about upcoming workshops there. You have an intercom course coming up, do you not?
We do actually. So right in the middle of the Healthy Relationship campaign, we do have an intercom course scheduled. Right now, though, just with the restrictions that are on, unfortunately, the building, the locations, all those pieces, family members aren't able to attend at this time. But what I would encourage folks to do, because we did a ton of national webinars throughout from April right through till the end of August. And there are some really good ones there that are on communication, stress, anger management, like I said, the nutrition, the sleep. So I would encourage folks to take some time. They're about an hour in length. And if you go to our CAF Connection website that you're going to share, you'll see a drop-down menu of past webinars, and then they're right there. So in the meantime, until we can actually all get together again face-to-face with doing that, you know, please utilize those resources, and we can continue to have conversations about, okay, how else can we, you know, engage the family members for sure.
So take a look at the comment section underneath, and we'll have the link so you can find that immediately. Chris, PMFRC also has programs to help families with relationships. Do you want to talk about some of those as well, some of the things that people can take a look at?
Absolutely. So if folks in relationships are having difficulties with communication, or just not being on the same page with their partner, and you feel that maybe a single session for counseling would be helpful for that, then that's one opportunity that we can provide for families. So be mindful of that. And Jules, I guess you'll put our connector on the bottom of the video. The other piece that is out in our community right now for the military families is a program by Sue Johnson called Hold Me Tight. And if folks are interested in learning more about that, I would suggest that they would email me as well, because we can certainly set them up, and you don't have to go anywhere. I tease couples or folks wanting to do the program, turn it into a date night, cook yourselves a nice supper and log on and take a session whenever you have the opportunity to do that. So if folks are interested more on doing things at home as opposed to coming out to like a single session or some couples counseling, that might be a better option for them for sure.
Thank you, Chris. That's awesome. So we're going to have the link to all of those things. And if you are interested in receiving mental health support or relationship support through the PMFRC, Chris Quigley is your first stop, and we're going to share her email address in the comments. Chris, you were talking earlier that this was originally, years back, called Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and healthy relationships is a really important thing to focus on, but I think that we would be remiss if we didn't talk about the other side as well, and some of the warning signs and some of the things that if people are concerned, what are the things they should be looking out for. Dana, do you want to sort of talk about some of the warning signs that people should be taking a look for, either in their own relationships or maybe in people who are close to them?
Absolutely. And I think probably before we kind of go down that road, just to maybe understand what the definition is of that family violence that we're using, so that folks can kind of, you know, have that understanding of, okay, well, where does my relationship fit then? So the definition that we utilize within the military community that we put out there is that abuse of power within a relationship of family, trust, or dependency. And it can take many forms, which, you know, emotional, physical, financial, Well, you know, the list goes on and on what's out there. So with that in mind, to know that that's what it actually is, probably one of the best tools that I can recommend that folks actually look up and utilize is what's called the Intimate Relationships Continuum. Now, the Intimate Relationships Continuum, you'll be able to find it on the CAF connection in that Healthy Relationships piece. And what it does is it shows us, because as we've talked about throughout this whole time, our relationships are on a continuum. Sometimes they're fabulous, they're that healthy. Sometimes we're struggling a little bit, and then they can move into the unhealthy or potentially into that abusive. It's very similar to the mental health continuum, which I know a lot of our military folks and family members are very familiar with. So the very similar coloring that's there. Ultimately, we would love to all live in the green all the time, but that doesn't happen. So the reality is we are going to shift and we are going to move. And it very similar to the mental health, we can shift and move. So within the intimate relationships continuum, you can actually look at it and it'll talk about, okay, well, in a healthy relationship, these are the characteristics that are there. You know, as we move to maybe that struggling phase, you know, these are sort of some of the things that you can look at for. So maybe, you know, there's some dishonesty, there's some pressure, just lack of communication. So, you know, it might not, you know, seem extensive at that point, but, you know, things just aren't as good as they have been or could be or should be. From there, you know, potentially we can move into the unhealthy, where we're actually starting maybe to see some manipulation, some guilt, you know, starting to look more for that control piece. And then finally into the violent piece, where it's, there's a lot about the control. It's very volatile. There's violence that's there. So it's important to take a look at that continuum then and kind of see, okay, well, where is our relationship right now? You know, and if we're moving out of the healthy, okay, you know what, maybe we aren't communicating as well. You know, what are some of those tools? You know, should we talk to someone at the mental health team? Should we look to, you know, find some other resources or call somebody, or, you know, just open the lines of communication again? So I think if I would encourage folks to actually go and take a look at that. And then there's also some great stories of how couples have managed to work through some of those really difficult times and come out. I think just also one of the pieces I want to mention, because we are so used to that mental health continuum, if I was in red for the mental health continuum and I was struggling, it doesn't mean that my relationship is in the red. My relationship could be in the green. Okay, so it's two very distinct continuums, but to recognize that when we are in the red, it is a time that we actually need help. And again, prevention. So even when you're in the green, you know, sign up for that Sue Johnson course, you know, talk to someone, take a course, do things to protect and nurture that positive relationship.
That's awesome. So we're going to share all of those things on there. And if you can follow the PMFRC Facebook page, and I believe on the Health Promotions Facebook page through the course of the month, we're going to be sharing little snippets of that on the Facebook page, just as a reminder to go back and check all of the resources that are there. And Chris, if people are looking at that scale and they're looking at where they are on that continuum, and they feel like they may not be safe, or they feel like they may need support, where can they go to get that support and that help?
Absolutely. Thanks, Julie, for asking that, because I think it's a very important piece. And some of the local, in our local community, we have the Mccann Women's Shelter. Yes, we have women's shelters. Unfortunately, we don't have a man's shelter right here in our area, but that's not to say that a male person dealing with some unhealthy relationship pieces couldn't call these resources that I'm going to share, and they would be able to speak with somebody on a one-time basis, and then those professionals would then refer them on to where the resources are more appropriate for them. And by all means, any folks that are dealing with these issues from the male perspective and they're military, you can always call the Garrison at local 4600, because that's where our healthy relationships and the family violence team kind of gives the phone number to call, so that if there's any issues, then it starts there with speaking with our chair of the FVAT team. There's also the Women's Sexual Assault Center, and they have some wonderful programs running. Again, Women's Sexual Assault Center, so more so for the women, but if a man were to call and discuss some issues that he was having in his relationship, or felt that he was being untreated fairly or whatever, or treated unfairly, then what would happen would be those professionals would give resources for him in the community and onward as well. I do know that currently the Women's Sexual Assault Center is starting to have some programs again virtually, some check-ins, that sort of thing. And so give those folks a shout. I will put a note in there that yesterday during our family violence team meeting, Jancy from the Women's Sexual Assault Center shared that they're having some difficulties with their phone line. So I will leave the number at the bottom, as you said, Jules, but be sure to continue to call. And if anyone is having issues with reaching the Women's Sexual Assault Center and they really want to reach out, then connect with me and I can connect with Jancy and we can get the parties connected for sure. And there's always, from the military side, the Family Information Line and Canadian Armed Forces Member Assistance Program as well.
I say this a lot on different contexts, and I think I say it almost every week when we do the fireside chat, is so often people are listening to us talking and they're listening and they say, I don't know if this applies to me, or I'm not sure if this is me, and they don't call because they're not sure, because they don't want to bother somebody, or they don't want to look like they're having problems, or they don't want to look like things are worse than they are. And there's really nothing, what we really want to tell people is reach out. Like, don't not call, don't sit there and not call us because you're not sure of your reply, you're not sure if we're going to be able to help you. If we can't help you, we can find someone who might be able to. So please, if you are sitting there and you're wondering, should I call, make the call, and then from there we can decide. Don't sit there and then not get the support or the assistance that you need.
Absolutely.
Chris, anything else that we should be looking for Healthy Relationship Awareness Campaign? I know that we're not out there as much as we used to be, but what can people look for if they are out there?
So I would share to watch the post. We're looking to have some articles put in the Petawawa Post so that if folks are still a little leery about, oh, I should call, I shouldn't call, just give a shout. And sometimes you might not even be wanting to call for yourself. You may very well wanting to be calling for a friend because you know that they're in a difficult situation. And that kind of goes along with the continuum, as Dana talked about as well, and kind of putting out a word out there for your friends in terms of, you know what, that's not okay, or maybe you should think about calling somebody. We're going to do a lot of publicity on the social media pages, both for MFRC and for the healthy or health promotions through Dana's side of the house there. And I really would encourage folks to go and have a look at some of those videos on the Healthy Relationships page under CAF Connections. There's some pretty eye-opening videos there of some couples who have had not so great relationships, but realize that they can push through and move on and have a different relationship than what they had been living with over a period of time. And we are going to be looking at putting things out on electronic boards, you know, reminding folks that it's Healthy Relationship Awareness Week, or weeks, I guess, in this case. And I would suggest if anyone is looking for a great opportunity to take a date night during Healthy Relationships Weeks, it's head to the library or head to a bookstore and invest in the 5 love languages. And then maybe even if you're figuring out what your partner's love language is, then you may be able to learn to communicate differently with them. And by communicating differently, then your relationship is seen in a different light. Yeah. So, and if people are looking for things particularly, if they want to give me an email, by all means, I'm well open for that as well.
Thank you, Chris. While I have the two of you ladies, so I mean, let's talk about action steps and things that people can do, and sometimes it's even a small step. I'm not gonna lie, I've spent a lot of time over the last couple of months watching Netflix, and oftentimes you see like the grand gestures and the big things, and it doesn't always have to be a big thing. Sometimes it's a small step that you can take now that's going to pay big dividends down the line. If you could talk to a couple and give them advice about one thing they can do during the month of October to sort of pour in or invest in their relationship, what's one tip that you could give them? Chris?
For me, it would be, if you are communicating and you find that your communication volume is increasing, I would suggest partners walk away, not to be rude or not to discontinue the conversation, but just take some time to gather your thoughts and then come back and have that conversation when you're a little less heated. I just want to encourage folks that sometimes when you make a difficult decision or you make a difficult choice, the consequence always isn't great. So as Dana said, you know, maybe you need to take that time out, walk away, and just share with your partner, you know what, now is not a great time for me to have this conversation. I am going to walk away and I'll come back later. I'm not going to continue the conversation, but just not right now.
And to respect that if someone's telling that to you.
Absolutely. Yes,
Dana?
respect is huge.
Dana, anything you want to share?
Yeah, actually just a couple of things. So as you mentioned, kind of the date nights and things like that. So really just ensuring couples protect time for themselves. When you're having that date night or you are spending the time together, it's not necessarily the time to be, you know, talking about the finances and, you know, what's wrong with the kids and things like that. Like really make it a time that it's about you to enjoy each other's company, because there's a reason that you're together. So if it's kind of looking back at, okay, what were some of those qualities and things that we enjoyed doing together that maybe have, you know, dwindled a little bit because of, you know, the kids in the house and the finances and the yada yada, you know, all those different things. So just really protect that that time. You know, as we talk about, you know, when to have that conversation, right? So we always tell folks, do a quick HALT analysis. So a HALT is check in with yourself. Are you hungry? Are you angry? Are you lonely? Are you tired? If you're any one of those things, you know, can you fix it before you're having that conversation? Because if you're any one of those things and you go into that conversation, it probably is going to heighten fairly quickly, you know, because we're not at our best to have that conversation. So just do that quick little check-in with yourself and see where you're at, and, you know, communicate with your partner when it's good times are good, when you're not discussing something, and set those parameters up for that. You know what, if we get talking and we start to argue, can we agree that we'll take a timeout, so that, you know what, it's known, it's and then it doesn't seem that someone is just withdrawing and wanting to ignore the conversation. But yeah, so those are just a few little tips that I would encourage couples to try to put into place.
So hungry, angry, lonely, tired.
Yes.
Incredible advice. I've never heard that before, and I actually wrote that down. Thank you. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Ladies, I appreciate you both joining us for the Fireside Chat. It was incredible to have you here. I think that this is such an important campaign this year, especially with everything else that's going on, because I mean, relationships are something that we really need to protect, and we all have a little bit more time. So maybe this is the time that we can sort of invest and find something that we can do together as a couple, or find something new to get excited about as a family and as a unit. Next week, we're going to be back with Fireside Chat. Hopefully, we're going to be back live with Fireside Chat. And the focus is going to be National Family Week. Typically, the PMFRC at this time of year starts to get ready for our open house. This year, we're taking the open house online. But we're going to be talking about National Family Week and some of the things that are happening. So join us next week. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Dana. Have a wonderful day, and we will see you soon.
Take care. Bye.
Thanks. Bye, everyone.